Hi, this is Krista at the Secret Yarnery. Today we're making this gorgeous flower granny square. This 3D flower granny square is so fun to make, just using little scraps of yarn, 4 different colors, 1 for your center and 3 colors for your petals. It is also part of the BloomScape CAL 2023. The BloomScape CAL is 1 new granny square, 1 new flower center. If you want to join in on the BloomScape CAL 2023, I will link that playlist in the description box down below, as well as the cards up above. And it's not too late to join. We're just making 1 new center just like this every month and then turning it into the block. If you'd like to follow along with a written pattern, it's available over on my website, secretyarnery.com. And you don't have to worry about being able to read a pattern. All of my patterns are written in plain English, just like I'm speaking in this video. To make this 3D flower granny square, you will need yarn. I'm using 6 different shades of Favorite from Ice Yarns. I'll link this in the description box down below. You need 1 color for the center, and 3 colors for your petals, 1 color for your leaves, and 1 color to make your block. I will be using a 5mm crochet hook for all of my BloomScape CAL blocks and all of these granny squares. You'll also need a pair of scissors and a needle for sewing in your ends. So let's get started. Starting with your center color, make a slip knot any which way you normally do. Shrink that down and pop it onto your hook. Chain 3. 1, 2, and 3. Now we're going to make a ring. We're going to go into that very first chain we made right here. If you'd rather do a magic ring, you are welcome to do so. But pop your hook into that very first chain we made and get yourself a little U shape underneath your hook. Just like that. So slide everything up onto the fat part of your hook, make a little U shape, and hold that U shape open with your finger and thumb, taking care to hold your tail along with that U shape, and slip stitch to join to form a ring, and still hold that open with your finger and thumb. Chain 1, and now we're going to do 12 double crochets into the center of that ring, right where we're holding it open. So pop your hook in, 12 double crochets. 1, 2, 3. If you run out of room, just grab that starting chain and just slide those stitches back to give yourself some more room to make your double crochets lay nice and flat. Now just count to make sure you have 12. And slip stitch to that first real double crochet to join right there. So slip stitch in to that first double crochet. 2 strands of that stitch on the top of your hook. Slip stitch and chain 1. Cut your yarn, leaving a long enough tail to sew in with a needle later. Pull your hook up and your yarn through and snug that down to secure. And that finishes round 1. Grab the color yarn that you're using for your first round of petals, and we're going to be working into front loops for this next round. So we're going to start, here's our join. We're not going into that stitch right after the join. We're going to go into the front loop, so just 1 strand of yarn on our hook, and we're going to go 2nd strand over, and I'll show you why when we get back around. So into the 2nd stitch, just picking up that 1 front loop only. So slide your hook in. Loop of your new yarn on your hook, bring it through and slip stitch with both strands to join. Drop your tail, just holding it a little bit along with your work, and chain 1. Wrap your yarn and make 2 double crochets into that same front loop, into that same spot. There's 1 and 2. Chain 2, 1 and 2, and slip stitch into that same front loop. 1 slip stitch. Now into the next front loop, right here. Just pop your hook in one loop, that front loop only on your hook. Slip stitch to start your new petal. Chain 2, 1 and 2, and 2 double crochets into that same front loop. There's 1 and 2. Chain 2, 1 and 2, and into that same space, that same front loop, slip stitch to finish that petal. Just like that. So we're going to do this into every front loop all the way around this round. So every front loop is going to get a petal. So into the next front loop, slide your hook in. We're going to make a petal. And petals for this round are 1 slip stitch, chain 2, 1 and 2, 2 double crochets, 1 and 2, and chain 2, 1, 2, and we're going to slip stitch to finish off that petal. Slip stitch into the very same front loop. Just like that. So we're going to do that into every single front loop all the way around. We're going to make 12 petals. So into the next front loop, just that first strand on your hook, slip stitch, chain 2, 2 double crochets, 1 and 2, and chain 2, 1, 2, and slip stitch to finish the petal. Slip stitch into the very same front loop, just like that. So now you can pause the video and keep working around, 1 petal into each front loop all the way around, and I'll meet you when we get closer to that join. Are you enjoying yourself? Go ahead and hit this button under this video right now so you don't miss out on any more fun content just like this. When you get back closer to that join, just count your petals. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So now I know I only have to make 1 more petal in that area there. That's why I like to start my new color right after my join, so I can always adjust if I need to put in an extra petal if my stitch count went a little bit off. So last petal into the last front loop, just like that. Slip stitch into that very first front loop, 1 slip stitch, chain 1, and now we are ready to start the next round, but we're not going to change our yarn color. Now we're going to work into the back loops. So turning your work over, we want to look for a back loop that is nearby. You could pick either one, it doesn't matter. I'm going to go a little bit behind and go for this back loop right there. So we're just going to slide that back loop onto our hook and slip stitch and chain 1. Now into that very same loop, we're going to do 2 half double crochets. So sliding that back loop back on my hook, 2 half doubles into the same stitch. 1 and 2. Into the next back loop. See how I'm just pulling my petals down and pinching them so they stay out of the way? Then you can see your back loops a lot easier. So there's 1 and there's 2. So we're going to do 2 half double crochets into each back loop. Make sure I get all of it. There we go. All the way around our flower. So 1 and 2 half double crochets. Fold the next petals down so we can see that next back loop right here. 2 half double crochets. 1 and 2. Fold your next petals down so you can see your next back loop right here. 2 half double crochets. 1 and 2. So now I can pause the video and keep working around. 2 half double crochets into every back loop all the way around. There'll be 12 back loops that we're working into, and I'll meet you when we get back closer to where we started. When you get back to where we started, just turn your work over. We want to make sure we worked into 12 back loops. So how you can tell that is you can just look here where your stitches came from. So there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. So that is what we want. We want to work into those 12 back loops. If you're enjoying this video, hit that thumbs up. If you need to add one, you can always add it right where we joined our yarn. Just put in 2 more half double crochets. Now into the top of that first half double right here, we are going to slip stitch to join. So slip stitch to join, and chain 1 to secure your yarn. Cut your yarn, leaving a long enough tail to sew in with a needle later. Pull your hook up and your yarn through, and snug that down to secure. And that finishes the second color. To start the third color, look for where our join was. We're going to work into the front loops again. So there's our join with our last color. I'm going to join into this front loop right there, right after our join. I've skipped one and I'm working into the second. So into the second front loop after we joined our yarn, we're just going to slide our hook in just like we did before. Grab your next color of yarn, loop of yarn on your hook, bring it through and slip stitch with both strands to join. Drop your tail, just holding it along the side of your work, and chain 1. Into the same front loop, 1 double crochet. And into the next front loop, right here, we're going to do 1 double crochet. Just into that next front loop, 1 double crochet, chain 2, and slip stitch. So for